is Steve Krause. I am the news editor for the Daily Item, and I'm here today to talk about the Swampscott Marblehead football rivalry. And with me is Sam Perlow from Marblehead, and to my far left is Chris Cameron from Swampscott, and they played in the 2008 game that was for the Northeastern Conference Small. The winner of that game went on to the playoffs. And on top of all that, it was the 100th anniversary of the rivalry. And on top of that, the rivalry was tied at 46-46 in 7 ties. And there were some very extenuating circumstances leading into that game. And that's where we're going to start. Sam, it was a very tumultuous year for Marblehead football.
It certainly was. The Thanksgiving game is always a big game against Swampscott. But that year, like you said, with the playoffs riding on it, the rivalry tied, and some of the events leading up to the game, it made it even that much bigger.
Yes, and we're speaking specifically about the fact that you lost your quarterback and your kicker due to a suspension. And you wouldn't think kicker would be that big a deal, but in your case it was.
Yeah, Ian, he was a pretty special high school kicker. He had made 2 40-yarders against Beverly, which helped us win a close game. So losing, he was more of a weapon, than I think a lot of kickers were.
Right, exactly. Meantime, Chris, you guys were sailing along. You guys were in the driver's seat the whole way until you hit Beverly.
Yep, Beverly's a good team. They're very well coached. We had some injuries late in the season that hurt us, both offensively and defensively. But like Sam said, it's always going into Thanksgiving game. Records are thrown out. It doesn't matter. It's a rich rivalry between us and Marblehead, so it's going to be a dogfight every Thanksgiving.
Right, and this one particularly because of what was riding on it. And there were some people on, I think, both sides that were playing in unfamiliar positions, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the game itself, because the game was one of the truly great ones in the rivalry. And I think you have to take this from the context that because your quarterback in high school sports is usually one of your best athletes. It's not like in the pros. You lose him in a kicker that's a weapon, and I think a lot of people underestimated how you were going to come into this game, and you gave them a fight.
I think a lot of people underestimated us too. Coach Chern used to put up the picks that guys like you would make in the locker room before the game, and they all said Swampscott. The guy who really stepped up was Nick Haller. He was our running back and one of our captains, and we switched the entire offense around. He moved from running back to quarterback, and he did an amazing job.
Chris, could you sense early in the game that this was going to be a dogfight?
Yes. Every Thanksgiving game always is, and Coach Dembowski, he would always do a great job coming up with a game plan leading to the game, and he would always preach to us when it comes to Thanksgiving Day versus Marblehead. The records don't count. It doesn't matter. You have to play your best that day. And a big part of that, in a dogfight like it was, is winning the penalty battle and the turnover battle. And if you win those, you got a good shot to win a game like that.
And that's a very germane thing to say about the penalty battle, too, because you got one called back on a penalty, didn't you?
A big one.
And that's when I thought this game might be very competitive.
Yeah, it was a
long run, wasn't it?
It was a big punt return by
it
was
Brandon Lee.
Brandon Lee, yep. Mm-hmm. He had a big punt return. It was either a holding or a block in the back.
Yeah. Suspect call.
But that was when I said to myself, boy, these guys are in for a fight. You're correct. Give me a little bit. Take me through the game.
So I know you just rewatched it, so it's probably a little fresher in your mind. But from what I remember, I think the only guys who really believed in us were the guys inside our locker room. And when we went out there, we went up 6-0.
Yes.
And I remember I got up in the end zone, and the crowd was going crazy, and we thought we could win the game. And like Chris said, that game you have to throw everything out because it's just 2 teams who want to win more than anything. What happened after that touchdown?
So after that, I think you had a running touchdown. Then we responded with a Steve Moran. He caught a post for a touchdown. And I want to say you guys went up. Were you guys up 13?
I think we were.
7?
And that's the thing. We missed the
you got a blocked extra point.
Right. And that was after the touchdown had been called back, too, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you were, at that point, you were controlling the game.
They were.
Mm-hmm.
And then I know they muffed the punt that we recovered, and they also had a bad exchange, like you said, with the new quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
He was riding a mesh, and they lost the fumble, and we recovered that again. So those were two big turnovers I can recall us having.
Can't give the ball back to an offense run by Chris Cameron.
No.
And then late in the game, you had the touchdown right before half. Was that right before half?
And we went up. Did we go into half 13-7?
I think you were up 13-7 at halftime, I want to say. And then we came back. I think we
scored late.
We scored late. Randall Kelleher caught his first career touchdown pass on a drag to get in the end zone. That made us up 21-13. And then we tried to kill the clock.
Mm-hmm.
They ended up stopping us. We punted it. They had a good punt return.
We had a chance.
Yeah.
Then last play.
Oh, you know what it was? The possession before that, it was 4th and 8 on about from the 10. You guys, Nick Haller threw a pass to the 1 yard line to Tariq Allen, and Steve Moran made one of the best plays on defense all season. He batted out of his hand 4th and 8. So that gave us the ball back. We went down, tried to kill the clock. They stopped us. We punted with a good punt return back. Then you guys, I think, ran a slow screen that brought you inside the 10 but didn't get out of bounds. So that's when Nick spiked the ball. I think there was about 10 or 15 seconds left from the 15-yard line.
And now, from both your perspectives, take us through it.
I mean, I thought Nick threw a great ball, and Dan had a chance to make the play, but Dan Camo, who was another one of our captains, had a great year. But Chris is a primetime player, and that's what big players do. They make plays in big games.
How about you? You made the play.
So what was going through my head was, I wanted to play at least one more game, and it was something I kept telling myself throughout the game. Like, this is not going to be my last game, not going to let them take it from me. And Coach Dombowski, he always jokes with me that I got beat on that route. So Tariq Allen was, in my opinion, one of their biggest threats on offense. Mm-hmm. So I was over top of him, and he was the third receiver out of a trip set. He started out running about a 5-yard out, and John Poth, our senior linebacker receiver, he was jamming number 2 receiver, and that was Dan Camo. So Dan ran a go, and I was over Tariq, who ran the out, and Coach Dombowski would always joke with me. I kind of did my own thing a little on defense. So I went to jump it thinking they were going to throw to Tariq. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I was like, oh crap, I'm getting beat over top. Me and John switched it on a zone. I actually was beat. I recovered pretty well, and I kind of just stuck my arm up. And to tell you the truth, it was pretty lucky. I just had a good angle falling down with one arm, and it was exactly.
Yeah. How'd that make? You must have felt like $1 million with that.
Oh yeah, that was one of the best feelings I had as a high school athlete.
Ironic though, that the quarterback that in coming in the Swampscott chain so close after Beatrice, who set all the records and everything, and you make the play of your career as a defensive play.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that made him such a great player was he did play defense, and he was so impactful on that side of the ball.
Mm-hmm. You played both ways too, didn't you?
I did, but I wasn't a quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sacked me a couple times. Don't let him fool you.
What about the rivalry itself? I mean, obviously, you every time you step onto the field for a Swampscott football game, you're stepping on the same field that Dick Geron played on, that Billy Adams played on, and those, Lasano, Tommy Toner, and you. Is there a sense of awe when you step on that field for the first time and you look around? Boy, this is where Dick Geron played.
It is. In the locker room in Swampscott, we kind of have, their pictures or a little bit about each player and the history of each player. And Coach Dombowski is really good about teaching us the history and what our program meant for the town and how many people actually, looked up to our program or would talk about our program. But with such a long history between Marblehead, as a little kid you grow up waiting for your turn to play in this game as a senior and knowing it's going to be either one of your last games or you could go on, but you really look forward to that and you give everything you have in the tank and you try your hardest in that game.
Sam, a little bit of a different situation. You don't have the oppressive, some might call it legacy, but you were the class that pretty much brought Marblehead football back from the dead. You had some 1-9s and 0-10s and some real coaching instability over there, and then Doug Chernovich comes in and rest in peace. He, whatever else you can say about him, is he put your football program back on the map, and thankfully it stayed there under Jim Rudloff. But Chernovich in your class that chose to stick with him instead of going to the prep and other places, he had an awful lot to do with that.
Coach Chern was unbelievable. His first year was my class's freshman year, so we were his guys. And I think the year before he came in, we did go 1-9 or whatever it was. So when we were able to beat Swampscott in 2006, I think we sort of looked at that game like, hey, this is the turning point for the program. Let's build on this. And unfortunately, we didn't get it done either the next 2 years. But like Chris was saying, those games are so big, they mean so much more that it can make your whole season. That 2008 season, that was our first winning season in, I think, 17 or 19 years.
I think it was, there's that many, yeah.
I think since 1992, so maybe it was 15 years.
Bruce Jordan years, yes.
But yeah, Coach Chern, he was a great coach, and he did a great job for that program.
He did, and there were other things that kind of got in the way, but I think at the end of the day, and I think I think his crowning coaching achievement was a loss, unfortunately, but you look at it and you were in that game. You were in that game minus two of your biggest offensive weapons, and you were there. You were 10 yards away, and took a great player to beat you.
And that's a real credit to the coaches because they changed the entire offense before that game with our two starting quarterback and backup quarterback out. So they did a really great job putting us in a position to be able to compete.
Another guy on Mike Giardi was on your staff too, wasn't he?
He was. He called the plays.
Yeah, he's a good man. Chris, unfortunately, the next game, I believe, was your last game, correct?
It was.
And you guys were awfully beaten up going into that game with Arlington Catholic.
A lot of injuries, and to have a playoff or a Super Bowl run, you got to stay healthy, and that's one thing that we didn't do. We lost players to suspension, and Trevor Wheeler tore his ACL, I think, week 5 or 6, and he was one of the best in the state, in my opinion. Ely 11 on the defensive side, he was either hurt or had a couple suspensions, but he was by far our best defensive player. And nicks and bruises, stuff like that. So.
And didn't they have one of those two guys that was about 6'6"?
Yes, they had a very big receiver.
Yeah, there's two of them. They were two brothers, and they were each about 6'100".
And they had a really good quarterback too,
Yeah.
Corey Spencer. He was a great quarterback.
They ended up going all the way.
They ended up winning it. So we got them our junior year, and they returned the favor senior year. So we each got one, which was good.
Final question. One of the things that made that season fun for us as writers and reporters was all of the possibilities and all the things that went through your head trying to figure out, well, if they do this, then this has to happen. And when you lost to Beverly, that just made the math on who was going to actually get in. There were about 4 teams that could have got in, depending upon what combination happened. Do you feel a little bit that the new system kind of detracts from that? It just takes some of the glow away from the games.
I certainly do. One thing that I don't like about it is how the playoffs now are before Thanksgiving. I think it takes a little bit away from the game. One of the things that made this game so special in 2008 was the winner was going to go to the playoffs.
I would agree with Sam in that aspect. I think, playing Marblehead twice a season, I don't really like that because, like Sam says, it takes up the big build-up the whole season. You think about playing Marblehead. But as of this year, it's kind of worked out because
Yeah, they
we're
did
kind of a
good.
young team,
Yeah.
and the other teams in the league were really, beating up on us with the older guys, and playing somewhat of more equal talent later in the season, I think's helped us
Yeah.
build a little confidence in our
But
team
common
this
sense
year.
prevailed. You're in different divisions now,
Right.
so you didn't have to play Marblehead.
Right.
Yeah.
But yes, I didn't like the fact that the Swampscott Marblehead was playing twice a season. I think that took away from the Thanksgiving game.
Well, it's still Thanksgiving, and I believe it is at your house this year, right, at Piper Field?
I
this
think
year?
so.
So, a lot of traffic on Humphrey Street on Thanksgiving.
Get there early.
Get there early, and thank you very much, both of you, for doing this. And go Swampscott, go Marblehead.
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Marblehead forever.